Hi all. Today we will be discussing about the regional changes or regional properties or regional structure and function in the vertebral column. So today we will be starting with cervical region. So what is the importance of cervical region? What are the structures which is consisted of cervical vertebrae and what are the properties of cervical region and what are the ligamentous and the muscular support of the cervical region and what is the main kinetics and kinematics of cervical region. So those are the things which we are going to discuss today. So mainly the cervical vertebral column consists of 7 vertebrae in total, and to understand the cervical region in detail or to make the things much more clear, we can divide the cervical region into two regions. First one is upper cervical region and the lower cervical region. So the upper cervical region is consists of occipital condyles and the first two cervical vertebrae. So we have our skull. The skull is joining with the vertebral column by means of this occipital condyles. So the upper cervical region is consisted consists of two occipital condyles and the first and second vertebrae. So these are the three structures which is forming the upper cervical region, and the lower cervical region or the lower cervical spine includes the vertebrae from C3 to C7. So as we all know, we have C1 to C7 vertebrae. Among the 7 vertebrae, we can divide the 7 vertebrae into two regions. One is upper cervical region and the lower cervical region. So the upper cervical region is consisted of C1, C2 and the condyles of occipital region, and lower cervical region consisted of C3 to C7. So why we are dividing the cervical region into two regions is mainly because the upper cervical region got its own properties which is different from the lower cervical region. So when we look from C3 to C7, all the vertebrae or all the vertebral joints from the C3 to C7 shows some similarities in function, but when it comes to the C1 and C2 and the vertebro-occipital joints, it has some changes. So that's why we are actually dividing the cervical region into two regions. So among these 7 vertebrae, we have something called as typical and atypical vertebrae. Typical vertebrae means they have some typical character, some typical properties which they share among them. So if you look from C3 to C6, all these vertebrae, all these 4 vertebrae got some similarities in their structure and in their function. But when it comes to C1, C2 and C7, there are some changes in the structure and in the function also. But C7 got almost the same kind of function as like C6 and other lower cervical region vertebrae, but the structure is slightly different from other cervical vertebrae. So that's the reason why we are taking C1, C2 and C7 as a atypical vertebrae and C3 to C6 as a typical vertebrae. So as you can see in this picture, this is the general structure of cervical region. So it starts from the occipital condyles. We got two occipital condyles, right and left occipital condyles. Then 7 cervical vertebrae. In the C1, C2 consisted of upper vertebral region and C3 to C7 consisted of lower cervical region. So now we are going to see in detail about all these regions. So first one is craniovertebral region or the upper cervical region. So as its name suggests, it's a craniovertebral region. So it's the region which forms by the cranium or the skull or the occipital condyles with the vertebral region, that means atlas and axis. That means the C1 and C2. So the C1 vertebrae is also called as atlas. So now we need to look into details about what are the properties of atlas and how it functions. So atlas is like a washer sitting in between occipital condyles and the axis. So it actually does not have a properties like a normal vertebra, but it acts as a washer which mainly to transmit the weight from the occiput to the vertebral column. So it's a washer-like structure and it functions as a cradle the occiput and to transmit the force from occiput to the lower cervical vertebrae. So it's actually acting as a cradle to transmit the weight from the occiput to the vertebral column. It has no vertebral body or spinal process and it is a ring-shaped structure. So it, it, it does not have any properties of normal vertebrae, but its main function is to transmit the weight from occiput to the upper cervical region. So because of this, it do not have an exact body or exact vertebral body. It also do not possess a spinous process as we can see in other vertebrae. So this is the structure of atlas. So as you can see in this, it don't have a body or a vertebral body or a spinous process, but what it has is a two superior zygapophyseal faces and two inferior zygapophyseal genes. Mainly the superior one is to hold the two occipital condyles and the inferior one is to get attachment with the second cervical vertebrae, and it got a transverse foramen through which mainly the arteries passes, and it got a arch-like structure, and it also got a facet for the dense articulation. So dense is a structure which you can find in the axis vertebrae. So it got something projection, it's an upward projection, that's what we call dense. So the dense has to be attached with the atlas. So for that it got an articulating facet. So what are the properties of atlas? So it got two large masses under each occipital condyle. So it actually do not have a body-like structure, but what it has is two lateral masses. It mainly to hold the occipital condyles in position and to transmit the weight from head to the vertebrae. The lateral masses are connected by, and look at this, these are the anterior arcs. So this is the anterior arch and it is the posterior arch. So both of these, the lateral masses are connected by an anterior arch and a posterior arch. The lateral masses include four articulating faces, two superior and two inferior. So as I have said, the two superior faces is to have an attachment with the occipital condyles, and the inferior one is to have an articulation with the C2 cervical region. It possesses a facet on the internal surface of the anterior arch for the articulation of dens or odontoid process. So as I have said, in the axis bone, we have something called as a superior projection, that's called as a dens or as odontoid process. To attach that odontoid process, we have something called as a articulation facet in the anterior arch. So these are the properties of axis. So axis is mainly got what is the structure and what the function of this axis. Atlas. So second one is axis. The primary functions is to transmit the combined load of head and atlas to the cervical spine and to provide motion into the axial rotation of the head and atlas. So when we look into the atlas, so it is something like, it got something like a projection or a superior projection which we call as dens or an odontoid process. So because of that, the axis is able to produce some kind of axial rotation of the head and atlas. So there is a central upward projection in that the atlas and the head is able to have some amount of rotations. So the primary function is to, as in atlas, the primary function of axis is also to transmit the weight of head to the vertebrae, and it also, because of this dense process, it also got some functions of rotations. A vertical projection called dens arises from the superior surface of the body. The dens has an anterior facet for the articulation with the anterior arch of the atlas and the posterior groove for the articulation of transverse ligament. So this is axis. So axis is much more like a normal vertebrae. So it got its own spinous process, but the exact property or the exact property of the axis is that it got a dense or odontoid process. It mainly to have an articulation with the atlas. So atlas, when we look into atlas got a facet for articulation, facet to articulate with this dens in the anterior arch. So the so that the articulating facet of the atlas get articulated with this odontoid process. So it also got 4 facets, 2 superior and 2 inferior. So it is mainly to, the superior one is mainly to get attached with the atlas, and the inferior one is to get attached with C3 cervical region. So what are the articulations which are happening in the upper cervical region? We got 2 atlanto-occipital joints. So it's a joint between the atlas and the occipital condyle. So we got 2 atlanto-occipital joints, that means right and left atlanto-occipital joints, and 3 synovial joint between atlanto-axial joints. So between atlas and axis, we got 3 articulations, 2 on the facet and 1 in between the dens and the dense articulating face of atlas. So in the atlanto-axis axial joint, we got 3 articulations, and in between the atlas and the occipit, we have 2 joints. That means 2 condyle joints. That means right and left joints between atlas and occipital, and in an atlas and axis, we got 3. So in the median atlanto-axis joint, or the joint between the dens and atlas, is a pivot joint. So pivot is something like which allows a much more rotatory forces. So the median atlanto-axial joint is much more like a pivot joint. The 2 lateral joints are between the superior zygapophyseal facet of the axis and the inferior zygapophyseal joint facet of the atlas. So as we can see in other vertebrates, it got the zygapophyseal facet. So the atlas also got 4 zygapophyseal joints, 2 in the superior and 2 in the inferior regions. So these 2 will form 2 joints and the middle or the median atlanto-axial joint. So it comes from 3 joints in between atlanto-axial and 2 joints between atlanto-occipital joints. So these are the articulation between atlas and axis. So this is the first one between superior facet of axis and inferior facet of atlas, and this is the second one between superior facet of axis and the inferior facet of atlas, and this is the third one between the dens process and the articulating facet of dens of atlas. So these are the 3 articulations which we can found in the upper cervical region. Then what are the craniovertebral ligaments? So when we talked about the ligaments in the spine, most of the ligaments in spine are either originating from C2 or it has some extension till C2 or C3 level. From there, either it extends as some other ligaments to the occipit or to the upper cervical region. So most of the ligaments which we can see in this upper cervical region are either an extension of the normal vertebral column ligaments or some premature structure which corresponds to some of these vertebral ligaments. So the posterior atlanto-occipital or atlanto-axial membrane are the continuation of ligamentum flavum. So we had a discussion about ligamentum flavum. It mainly between the lamines of two vertebrae. So when it comes to the upper cervical region, it is called as posterior atlanto-occipital or atlanto-axial membrane. It's not actually a ligamentous structure, but it has some properties of ligament and it is a membranous-like structure. The anterior atlanto-occipital and atlanto-axial membranes are the continuation of anterior longitudinal ligament. The tectoral membrane is the continuation of posterior longitudinal ligament. The thick ligamentum nuchae from the spinous process of C7 to the external occipital protuberance is an evolution of supraspinatus ligament. So we had something called a supraspinatus ligament. The supraspinatus ligament is mainly getting originated from C7 to the sacral region. So from the occipital protuberance till the T7, the supraspinatus ligament is something called as a ligamentum nuchae. So all of these ligaments are some evolutionary part of the vertebral ligaments. The transverse ligament stretch across the ring of the atlas and divide the ring into two large posterior sections for the spinal cord and for small anterior space for the dens. So there is one more called as a transverse ligament between the a ring, and it got two separations. One is for the spinal cord and second one is for the dens projection. So these are the ligaments which you can see. The posterior atlanto-occipital membrane. So all of these ligaments are some kind of extension of normal cervical ligament or normal spinal ligament. So this tectoral membrane is an extension of posterior longitudinal ligament. Posterior atlanto-occipital membrane is an extension of ligamentum flavum. So all of these ligaments are some kind of extension from long ligaments of the spinal cord. And there is one more thing called as alar ligaments. The two alar ligaments are also specific to the cervical region. So alar ligament is something like a regional ligament for the cervical region. So when we talk about the ligaments in any of the vertebral region, we have something common ligaments which we can found all over the spinal column. There are also something called as regional ligaments. So regional ligaments are specified for each of these regions. So in the cervical region, there are something specific to the cervical region. So that is called as alar ligaments. These paired ligaments arise from the axis on either side of the dens and extends laterally and superiorly to attach the rough areas of the middle side of the occipital condyle. So alar ligament are mainly start from the axis and it travels laterally and superiorly to get attached with the condyles of the occipit. So that is the property of alar ligaments. So that are the things which we need to talk about upper cervical region. So what are the structures which is contribute to the upper cervical region, and what are the function which is specified for this upper cervical region, and what are the ligamentous support which we have in our upper cervical region. So next is the lower cervical region. So the lower cervical region is mainly consists of typical cervical vertebrae. So as like in normal other vertebrae, it also got a body and a neural arch. So what are the properties of body? It's a small with the transverse diameter is greater than anterior posterior diameter and the height. So as we said in earlier classes, the body or the size and shape of body is actually depends on how much force it is transmitted or it is transmitting from the upper region to the lower region. So as we can see in the cervical region, it's a small area and it got only few amount of forces or weight which need to be transmitted from one body to other. So because of these properties, the size of body is small with the transverse diameter is greater than anterior posterior diameter. Next is posterior lateral margin of the upper surfaces of vertebral bodies from C3 to C7 support the uncinate process that gives the upper surface of the vertebra a concave shape in frontal plane. So this is the thing. So when we look into this body, so now we talk about the body. So when we talk about the body, the transverse diameter is more than the anterior posterior diameter. So the transverse diameter is greater than anterior posterior diameter. So there is one more thing called as uncinate process. So because of this uncinate process, the body has got something like a concave structure. So that are the properties of body. Next one is arches. So as in normal vertebrae, the arch is composed of pedicles, laminae, sagittophyseal articulating process, transverse process, spinous process, and the vertebral foramen. So as like in other vertebrae, the arches got pedicles, laminae, sagittophyseal, transverse process, and spinous process, and it also got a vertebral foramen in center. So the pedicles, it's projected posterior laterally and are located halfway between the superior and inferior surface of the vertebral body. Next is laminae are thin and slightly curved. They project posterior medially. And then sagittophyseal articulations. So we got superior and inferior sagittophyseal articulations. The process support paired superior faces that are flat and oval and face superior posterior. So basically, the sagittophyseal facet is to have an attachment with the superior vertebrae and the inferior vertebrae. So we got superior facet and inferior facet. Next is transverse process. A foramen is located in the transverse process bilaterally for the vertebral artery, vein, and venous plexus. Also, there is a groove for spinal nerves. It's a transverse. There is something called as a transverse process. In the transverse process, there is a foramen. So the foramen is mainly to have the vertebral arteries, vein, venous plexus, and also for also act as a groove for spinal nerves. And we got the posterior spinous process. The cervical spinous process are short, slender, and extends horizontally. The tip of spinous process is bifid. So, and next is vertebral foramen. The vertebral foramen is relatively large and triangle. So these are the properties of each of these things. So this is the transverse process. As you can see in transverse process, there is a foramen. So foramen is mainly to have the arteries, veins, and venous plexus, and also for the spinal nerves. Next one is lamina. So lamina is something like an arch structure which is posterior medial. It is posterior and it is to medial. And this is the vertebral foramen. It's a triangular shaped thing, mainly to have the spinal cord in. Next is spinous process. Spinous process is posteriorly placed and it is a bifid structure. So bifid just means that it got a slit in between. So these are the properties of each of the structure in the typical vertebrae which are present in the lower cervical region. So next is intervertebral disc. So what is intervertebral disc and what is the function of intervertebral disc? So the intervertebral disc, the fibers of annulus fibrous and not arranged alternatingly laminar layers as in the lumbar region. So when we look into lumbar region, it is something like a circular structure with the nucleus pulposus inside the annulus fibrosus. But in the cervical region, it is not exactly as like in the lumbar region. So there are some variations for the structure of intervertebral disc. They do not surround the entire perimeter of the nucleus pulposus. So in the lumbar region, the annulus fibrosus is the one thing which surrounds the whole nucleus pulposus. But when it comes to the cervical region, the annulus fibrosus is not actually surrounding the whole perimeter of the nucleus pulposus. Instead, the annulus fibers in the region have a crescent shape when viewed from above, being thick anteriorly and tapering laterally as they approach the uncinate process. So, this is the exact structure of intervertebral disc in the cervical region. So, as in the lumbar region, the annulus fibrosus is actually surrounding the whole nucleus pulposus. But when it comes to the cervical region, it is not actually covering the whole nucleus pulposus, and it got something like crescent shape when we view from the superior view. The interbody joints of the lower cervical region are saddle, and motions therefore occur in two planes. So it's a saddle type of joint. So this is the saddle structure. Because of this structure, it got only two kind of movements, so mainly flexion and extension. The cyclophysial joint in the cervical spine, as in other regions, are true synovial joints and contain some fibroadipose and meniscoid. So cyclophysial has some meniscoid or fibroadipose. It's mainly to reduce the effect of this transmitting force and also to ensure a proper movement. So that are the functions of those. Next is, what are the function of the cervical region? Kinematics. What are the movements which are mainly happening in the cervical region? The motions of flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and rotations are permitted in the cervical region. These motions are accompanied by translations that increase in magnitude from C2 to C7. In the C2 or in the upper cervical region, the extent of flexion is limited, but when it comes to the C7 or the lower cervical region, the magnitude of movement is increases. The atlanto-occipital joints allow for only nodding movements between the head and the axis. So this is mainly happening in the atlanto-axis joint. So atlanto-axis joint is mainly for nodding, either forward or backward nodding. So whenever they try for forward nodding, what is happening? So it is something like a concave convex surface. It means the occipital condyles form the convex surface and the atlas form a concave surface. So all the movements which are happening inside that will be in an opposite direction. So if there is an anterior nodding, what is happening? The condyles of occipital will go for posterior translation. At the same time, the atlas can go for superior translation. And there will be increase in space between the atlas and axis. But when it comes to posterior nodding, the opposite thing will happen. The condyles, the occipital condyles will go for anterior translation, and the spine, atlas and axis almost comes together. Motions in the atlanto-axial joint include rotations, lateral flexion, flexion and extension. Approximately 55 to 58% of the total rotations of cervical region occurs at the atlanto-axial joints. The atlas pivots about 45 degrees either side, and a total of 90 degrees of rotations are possible because of this pivot action of atlas joint. The shape of cyclophysial joints and the interbody joints dictates the motion at the lower cervical segments. Pure anterior translation are difficult to have. Flexion of these segments must include anterior tilting and cranial vertebral body coupled with anterior translation. So whenever we try for flexion, there should be an anterior translation of the cranial vertebra, or the cranial vertebra means the superior vertebra. Cranium means the head. So the vertebra which is towards the skull or towards the head is called as cranial vertebra. Flexion of these movements must include an anterior tilting of cranial vertebra coupled with the anterior translation. So whenever we try for flexion, the superior vertebra is always going for anterior translation with anterior tilting. Extension includes posterior tilting of the cervical vertebra coupled with posterior translation. So lateral flexion and rotations are also coupled motions. So because of movement of either alone would cause a cyclophysial joint to abort one another and prevent motion. So in previous classes we have discussed about coupling of movement. So whenever we try for a movement in spine, it is not actually happening as a pure movement. So it's a coupled kind of movement. So whenever we try for flexion, there will be some amount of tilting. So whenever we try for lateral flexion, there will be some associated rotation. So these are the things which are happening in the coupled movements. So all the movements which are happening in the cervical region are some coupled movements. If it is a flexion, it will be anterior translation with anterior tilting. If it is extension, it is posterior translation with posterior tilting, and if it is lateral flexion, it's a lateral flexion with the rotatory coupling. So all these movements are happening in a coupled manner. Next is kinetics. What are the forces which is acting on the cervical region? The cervical region differs from the thoracic and the lumbar region in that the cervical region bears less weight and generally much more movable. So when we look into the cervical region, we are easy to move the cervical region in different motions. It mainly because it only got a few amount of force which needs to be transmitted from the head to the vertebral bodies. So because of this function, our cervical region got much more free movement. In the cervical region, from C3 to C7, compressive forces are transmitted by 3 parallel columns. So whenever we look into the cervical region, we can divide it into 3 columns based on the structures which is actually carrying this weight bearing forces. So there is a single anterior central column which is formed by the vertebral bodies and the disc. So there is a central column where the main forces are transmitted. That is the column which is formed by the vertebral bodies and the disc. Second one, we got 2 rod-like columns in either side which is formed by the cyclophysial facet and the joints. The compressive forces are transmitted mainly by the bodies and disc, with a little over 1/3 transmitted by the posterior lateral column. So the main forces which are transmitted through the cervical column is by the central part or by the body and the disc, and there is a 1/3 of the forces are transmitted by the lateral columns that is formed by the cyclophysial facet and the joints.